The Cannabis Heals Me podcast, episode 86.
You're listening to the Cannabis Heals Me podcast, where we explore the real stories of real people who have discovered the profound healing properties of the cannabis plant in their own lives. Find more at cannabishealsme.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Cannabis Heals Me podcast. This is your host, Rachel Kennerly, and we are coming to you once again from the Storybook Inn Studios. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, survived the holidays, and you're busy shopping now for Cyber Monday. Maybe you are listening to the podcast as you do your Cyber Monday shopping. I have not checked out the deals on Amazon yet, but I will probably likely do that just because, it's hard to pass up a good deal. And it's hard to pass up a brand new episode of the Cannabis Heals Me podcast. If you want to make sure that every new episode of the podcast is automatically downloaded to your podcast app, go out and subscribe to the podcast. And while you're out there subscribing, would you do me the favor of giving us a rating or a review? That juices the algorithm, and the podcast catcher will actually recommend us to other people listening to similar type programs. So if you'll give us a rating or review while you're out there subscribing, we would sincerely appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me again today. We are very appreciative of you coming and investing this time listening to the show. We're very thankful for all of our faithful listeners. We're thankful for our brand new listeners that have come over the past couple of months. Our numbers are steadily increasing, so we really appreciate everybody spreading the word. If you're new to the show, you probably don't know about the Tell 3 People Challenge. We ask our listeners each week to tell 3 people about the podcast. We want to share the stories with more people, get more people to realize that cannabis is medicine. And we have another medical story for you today. We're going to be joined by Melissa Fults. She and her husband were very influential in getting medical cannabis legalized in Arkansas. So she's going to join us and tell us a little bit about that. And then she's also going to tell us why they wanted medical cannabis legalized in Arkansas. I do want to give you a bit of a heads up. The audio was kind of in and out as we were recording, and I cleaned it up as best I could, but I am not a technical person. So you may still notice that the audio kind of gets louder and gets quieter on the guest side. But in spite of that, Melissa was a great person to interview, and I think you'll enjoy the story of how medical cannabis came to Arkansas, and then also Melissa's son's story. Hey, Melissa, welcome to the Cannabis Heals Me podcast. Glad to have you on.
Good morning.
Good morning. I saw that you were, I guess you were at an expo up there and saw one of my friends, Austin, hanging out with you. And I'm like, I need to talk to this lady. She's in Arkansas and sounds like she was involved in the medical cannabis program up there, or trying to get medical cannabis brought to Arkansas. So I reached out to you to see if you'd like to come on to the program to talk about that. And you're like, well, I have a patient story too. So I'm like, well, winner, chicken dinner. We can kill 2 birds with 1 stone here.
That's one way to look at it. Yeah, we got involved in the medical cannabis program back in April of 2011. My husband and I started looking for a way to get cannabis passed in the state. My son had been on opioids for 14 years, prescription opioids, and all of his doctors told him, we're killing you, but we have no alternatives. The lining of your stomach is gone. Eventually, your stomach will rupture and you'll bleed out before you get to the hospital.
Oh, my gosh.
At this time, he was 28 with a young child at home, a toddler, actually. And we decided, there's got to be something we can do. So Gary got online and started looking around, and 3 college kids had just gotten an amendment approved by the AG's office to start gathering signatures. Like 2 days before. So we got involved with them, and 2 of the college kids dropped out, 1 stayed in, and we formed a pretty good team. And because Gary had done a lot of mobilization work with the union at the railroad, and I had done a lot of organizational work, we started kind of helping getting the group to evolve, getting more active, helping raise more money. And we missed passing it in 2012 by 1.7%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was huge because everyone said it will never pass in Arkansas. But we got really close. So then we immediately started rewriting. The guy that had issue 6 had gotten involved with us in the end of July of 2012. So he wanted to work with us, and we started doing a rewrite for 14. Well, he had a very bad idea of how to do it. We wanted for patients to be able to grow, especially if they were too far from a dispensary. We wanted an affordability clause so that so many patients that are disabled and living on a fixed income could afford their medicine. And he didn't want any of that. So he went his way and we went ours. Neither one of us made the ballot that time. There just wasn't funding and we didn't have enough time. So I started a rewrite in 2014. And we did get on the ballot, even though we got thrown off. We did get on the ballot. And we had a huge network at this time. And they took us off the ballot 4 days after early voting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, thousands and thousands of people lost their voice because they had voted for us, but it didn't count.
Mm-hmm.
So once it passed, once issue 6 passed.
So what was their excuse for taking y'all off the ballot after voting had begun?
Well, supposedly they found 10,000 signatures that had some kind of mistake or problem with it. And the law actually specified that volunteers could be allowed mistakes or or errors. So a little thing like they didn't check something or, just really little technical errors. They weren't dishonest. They'd done their signatures. And like on one of them, for instance, one page about the second from the top, someone, instead of putting that day's date, put their birthday, their birth date, but the next year. They weren't thinking about it. So everybody after that, the other 8 people on that page got thrown out because that date wasn't even there yet. So they knew that we didn't gather signatures after that date. The date hasn't even gotten there yet. I mean, stupid things like that. There were obvious mistakes, little technical errors, which according to the law were supposed to be acceptable. But we found out later on that he had been given a 100% guarantee that we would not be on the ballot no matter what we did.
Oh, wow. And who was this that got this assurance?
David Couch from issue 6.
Oh, so this is the guy that y'all split with, right?
Right.
And he didn't make the ballot in 2014?
No, neither one of us did.
Okay.
But he did in 16. He got $2 million to run his campaign.
Where'd he get the $2 million from?
He ended up with funders, and to be quite honest, he sort of blackmailed one of them into funding him. So, but that's another story down the road. Long story.
Okay, so y'all made the ballot, and then what year was this that y'all made the ballot and then got kicked off? 2016.
Yes, he waited until the very last second to file a lawsuit against us, against our signatures. Which, had we filed a lawsuit against his signatures, he would have been thrown off because the same people that gathered his signatures gathered another group's signatures for a casino, and they got thrown off because of their signatures. So, had we been really tacky, we could have gotten him thrown off. But
yeah, but if the goal is to get medical cannabis passed in Arkansas.
Exactly. But his goal was to get a monopoly passed in the state of Arkansas. And if you'll look at what the bill is, what the amendment is, it is truly a monopoly, which is really heartbreaking. It's not about patients. There's nothing about it is about the patients. We had 52 qualifying conditions. He had 17. He left off autism. He left off lung function disorders. He left off like migraines. I think I already said autism, ADD, ADHD. There's so many things that got left off. So there are thousands of patients that got left behind. Plus, the way he wrote it, he locked in the maximum number of dispensaries for the whole state at 40 and a maximum number of cultivation centers to 8.
Wow.
Yeah, we have people that'll still be driving, even if all 40 get set up and going. There are still patients that are going to have to drive in excess of an hour just to get their medicine.
Hey guys, wanted to tell you real quick about our podcast host and sponsor, Anchor.fm. If you're thinking about starting your own podcast, I highly recommend Anchor. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. They'll distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go out to Anchor.fm to get started. That's Anchor.fm. Now back to the show. Now, is there a way that y'all can go in legislatively or amend this to get more?
Yeah, we tried that. Now, they cannot change the day and the number of dispensaries or cultivation, which that's what he made sure they couldn't do. But we did try, before we went for full adult use, we did try to get the legislature to add the additional qualifying conditions so that those patients that got left behind would have access. We not only did not get a due pass, we didn't even get a motion for a due pass.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, and the representative that sponsored the bill told them, if you don't do this, if you don't give them these extra qualifying conditions, they will go for adult use. It will pass in the state.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. When did these go on the ballot? And then when did medical cannabis actually pass in Arkansas? Because there was like a couple of years between when it passed and when y'all actually got access, right?
Passed in 2016.
Okay.
Both ballots made the amendment. Made the ballot. Both amendments made the ballot.
And then y'all's got kicked off because of signatures?
Ours got kicked off 4 days into early voting because of our signatures. And the thing is we still had signatures they had not even counted because they only go 10% over what you have to have. They wouldn't even allow them to count those. So you think that wasn't set up? Yeah, it was bad. And supposedly the licenses were supposed to be issued within 120 days.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing the legislature did was extend that time period. And it went from 120 days to 2.5 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it took them a 2.5 years to ever finally issue the licenses. And the nice thing about our amendment that we got for the adult use is we put a section in at the very bottom that clearly states the legislature can make changes with 3/4 of the vote, except for, and then we basically listed pretty much they can change the definitions. That's about all they can do.
So they can't change the dates.
No, they can't change the time for it to get up and going. The dispensaries that are in good standing will get to start selling for adult use December 4th of 2020, 1 month after the election. And licenses must be issued no later than 120 days from the election.
Awesome.
So there won't be another 2.5-year delay before adults have the option to purchase.
So now this is going to go on the ballot in 2020, right? This new adult use thing. Whereas if they had just made some concessions for y'all, you wouldn't be going for full adult use. You would just limp along with the pathetic medical use bill, right?
Well, we actually made the statement in 2016 that we were all about getting patients their medicine at an affordable, accessible, legal outlet, which was our whole goal. We had worked on for 6 years to make sure it was not just accessible, but that the patients could afford it. And I said, we don't care about working on adult use. That's not what we're fighting for. Somebody else can fight that fight. I'll support it, but, we're going to ride off into the sunset, which is really what we intended to do. But when issue 6 passed instead of ours, and we saw that it had nothing to do with patients and all about money, we knew that we couldn't be silent any longer. We knew that we had to do something. So we had started kind of tossing around the idea of adult use and an expungement bill. And we were writing it just in case. But I said, well, I'll tell you what. I know there are a lot of people that want to work on adult use. And if I can get the legislature to add these extra conditions, we'll walk away and somebody else can do it. Well, they wouldn't. And he told them, if you don't do this, she will go for full use. So when we got up after they refused to even give us a due pass, even a motion for one, I turned around, looked at him, smiled and waved and said, see you November 2020. And walked out of the room. And he said, Melissa, I know you got to do what you got to do. And I understand. So I called our attorney immediately after that and said, okay, we need to sit down and see what changes we need to make and what all we need to do. We're going forward. And that's kind of history now.
Yeah. So onward and upward with adult use. And if they had just made concessions for you, or if they had just passed a medical cannabis bill that would give patients affordable access to medical cannabis, y'all wouldn't be trying to push for adult use.
No. And with ours, with issue 7, we had so many qualifying conditions that anybody that needed it could use it. We had it for anxiety, depression, COPD, asthma, ADD, ADHD, autism, migraines, Parkinson's, the list goes on and on. We had 52 conditions. There really wasn't a condition that if a patient really needed it, they couldn't get it. And that was our goal. And I didn't have a problem with full legalization. It's just not, it was just not something that I had thought I had the energy to fight for. But what we have, the program we have, is a joke. I mean, to be really serious, it's a joke. When patients who are truly, truly ill have to drive an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to their medicine, it's ridiculous.
And I'm assuming there's no home grow or anything like that on this current bill.
Well, God forbid, no. He was adamant that there would be no home grow, which is stupid. Even one of the guys that financially funded him, because he pretty much was guaranteed a dispensary and cultivation, which he got neither. I called him and said, okay, we're writing an adult use. What kind of a problem do you think backlash will get for home grow? Because I think that's important. He laughed. He goes, Melissa, that's not a problem. He said, the first year it'll have lots and lots of people trying to grow.
Right.
They'll realize how expensive it is. And then the next year you'll have about half that many. But even if they're growing themselves, they'll still come to the dispensaries because we'll have strains that they won't. So he said, home grow is not a problem. He said, especially if you limit the number of plants where it doesn't. He said, my concern is when, like Colorado, at one time you could grow 99 plants. Personally, the black market was so saturated that it really became a problem. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I told him. I said 6 mature plants and then 6 seedlings for each. And I mean, that's for each adult over 21 can grow that. So if you have a spouse, you can both grow 6 plants each. But I said that will give people enough product for their own personal use, whether they're juicing, smoking, doing edibles, whatever. That will give them enough to keep a supply. But it won't be so much that the black market will just flourish. My concern was that if the black market was so saturated and so much out there, Nobody knew what they would be getting. They wouldn't know, what pesticides were used, what mites or mold or whatever was in it. And I didn't want that. I didn't want people to get an inferior product that could cause health issues. So I thought 6 plants, they'll give them enough for themselves, but they're not going to be selling out the back door to a bunch of people and getting a lot of people sick because they did a really crummy job growing. So we did limit it to 6 plants, which I think is more than fair. We tried to give everyone something. We wanted to give people the option to grow, but not so much that it runs dispensaries out of business because, they're selling it out their back door and the black market is flooded. We gave the dispensaries something because we allowed them, right now they can only grow a maximum of 50 plants. With ours, they will be able to grow a minimum of 200 mature plants. So that will allow them to make a little more money and to be a little more independent.
So the current bill that limits grows to 4 grows, they can only grow up to 50 plants?
The dispensaries can only grow a maximum of 50 plants.
Okay, so the dispensaries can have a grow as well, right?
But only 50 plants, and as well as I do, that'll service about 10 patients. And we also gave the cultivation something where instead of allowing, 30 or 40 cultivation centers, there will be one for every 250,000 residents, which right now is about 12. So the cultivation centers are not going to be falling over each other and growing, 5 or 10,000 plants and it being so saturated that they can't make any money. The dispensaries will still have to buy from the cultivation centers to be able to supply all their clients, but they'll also be able to grow more plants where they will be able to make a little more money on their own, be a little more self-sustaining. But more than anything else, there will be a minimum of 120 dispensaries in the state now rather than a maximum of 40. It will make it more accessible to everyone, both patients and adults. It will bring the price down because those dispensaries will be growing more plants, be more cultivation, so there will be more competition rather than the little monopoly that they have now. So we gave the patients a chance to grow their own and also to have more accessible, more affordable cannabis. So we tried to give everyone something. Did we give everyone everything they wanted? Absolutely not. That's not even feasible. We did, however, try to make sure that everyone got something that they needed out of it.
Well, it's going to be a lot better for patients than the existing law. And the fact that it took them 2.5 years to even get product on the shelf is sad. I mean, look at Oklahoma, y'all's neighbor over there. They passed in June and they had, not probably Oklahoma grown product, but they had some product on the shelf in like November of the same year.
Yeah, 6 months, they were up and going.
Yep.
Which is ridiculous that we went 2.5 years.
That's right.
But, we didn't take this lightly. We didn't just throw it up there. And we also didn't ask for the sun and the moon. We looked at and there was a group of us that got together. Actually, a couple of them have moved to Oklahoma because they got so frustrated here. And they sit down and they wanted, we want to do this. We want to do this. Well, Oklahoma's getting to do this. We're not Oklahoma. It's not tried and true. I want something that's not just good for today. I want something that 10 years down the road can be expanded, can work with the industry and grow with the industry rather than throw everything out there and fail. So, we truly thought everything through. And like I said, did we give everybody everything? No. But we made it where it's expandable enough that it can grow with the industry.
So you've got, as far as cultivation goes, you can have one for every 250,000 residents. Is there anything factored in for consideration for people that might come up from, say, Texas or Missouri and get stuff there? Do they have to be Arkansas residents in order to buy?
So anybody's got a dispensary in, say, Texarkana, West Memphis, they're going to be really happy.
Yeah.
They're going to do real good.
They are.
Because you can just jump right over that Texarkana line and buy you 4 ounces and then go home and just hope you don't get caught going across state lines.
Right. Yeah. That's the danger.
Yeah, but you can. That's another thing. You can purchase up to 4 ounces from a dispensary at a time.
Do y'all have any limits on like processors and stuff like that, or is it?
Nope.
And do you have anything built in the bill as far as edibles go? Because I know, like in Colorado, they started putting restrictions on how many milligrams of THC can be in a serving.
We did do that because the opposition, that was the first thing they jumped in and did, but the medical went along Colorado's line that it could not be more than 10 milligrams per dose. And that's kind of set the standard for across the nation. As much as I hate it, because people that have to use it daily, 10 milligrams is not much. They have to eat like half of a candy bar, 5 or 6 doses for it to work. But that's also something else we gave that, okay, it has a 10 milligram limit. We've given y'all something, we've given the naysayers something, because, that's the first thing they would start saying is, oh, they'll allow, if a child gets a hold of it, it can have 100 milligrams in it. The child, blah, 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 blah.
It's for the children.
Yeah. Think of the children.
Yeah.
Well,
but they don't talk about the children with cancer that could be benefited by having access to medical cannabis.
Or, how many times, and I made this point also, how many times have people been sitting around drinking beer and a toddler walks up and picks up the beer and drinks it, and everybody in the room thinks it's so funny.
That's right.
Seriously? It's not funny. But they tried to pass a bill, an amendment to the amendment, that you could not even smoke in a house, even like in a different room, in a closed room, if there was someone under 21. And if you did, DHS could actually come and take your children.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So needless to say, we killed that bill. Out of 52 bills, 22 passed. We supported 20 of them. We opposed 2, but we knew that there was no way we would win those. One had to do with jobs, safety-sensitive jobs, and the other one, the military. But the representative explained to us, Melissa, this is a federal law, and they can get thrown out just for being a caregiver. So we got to put this bill in there to protect them. So I didn't like it, but we knew that there was no way we could stop it. But the other 30, we killed. As a matter of fact, it kind of got to be a joke. Every morning during the legislative session in 2017, we would find out which bills were going to be up, which ones I was going to be testifying for or against. We would post those on our website and our Facebook page, and would give the phone numbers for them to call and show them where to get their legislators. And we shut the switchboard down, the legislative switchboard down, 2 or 3 days a week for the entire
Wow. That's awesome.
Every time we had a bill up, we would shut the switchboard down from how many calls that we had coming in. So
that's amazing. I mean, most people don't want to get off their duff and make a phone call, as easy as that is.
Well, we're kind of pushy.
That's great, though. I love it.
We had a great group of followers, and like I said, we always said check the Facebook page every morning to know what bills you need, if there's any bills you need to call about that day, or emails that you need to write that day. They did a great job. People would get on and make the calls or send the emails, and flood legislators' email boxes, and so it was great. They realized, we really don't want to pass these bad laws because our constituents are furious about them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, y'all were probably already mad enough that they pushed it out to 2.5 years that the patients had to wait.
Well, they were only going to supposedly pushing it out, another month or 2. Well, then it was another month or 2, and then another month or 2, and then it was 2.5 years. So, yeah, people were pretty mad. And I think that's another reason why we're going to do so well with the signature gathering for this one, because people are still so furious with state and the legislature and the marijuana commission that they're just sick of it. And, let's just pass it and get it over with, and we can have our medicine and can afford it. So,
yeah. Well, the argument that you hear from prohibitionists when you talk about trying to bring medical cannabis to a state is, oh, well, the next thing you know, they're going to legalize it for adult use. And it's like, well, that's because the legislators trying to nitpick and control every facet of the medical program. If they would just let the will of the people be heard and follow the will of the people, then, in Arkansas, y'all wouldn't be pushing for an adult use bill.
At least we wouldn't. But yeah. And the sad thing is the legislature is so mad that we are getting these bills passed, like the marijuana bill. There was a casino bill last time. There was a minimum wage bill, and they have tried their best to water down every single bill that we've passed. And I've been told by multiple legislatures to my face, you don't have any business passing laws.
Well, what business do they have passing any? What gives them the authority to rule over the people in that state?
They said, that's our job. And I said, well, if you would do your job, we wouldn't have to do this. But, so they have a bill, an amendment that's going to be on the 2020 ballot also. And what it will do is it will basically give them the right to kill the petitioning process.
Oh, wow.
They've already damaged it drastically to the tune of, it cost us $75,000 to get on the ballot in 2016. It's going to cost us 10 times that to get on the ballot in 2020.
Are you kidding me?
No. And I mean, literally 10 times that.
Wow.
Just to get on the ballot.
Wow. And that is just nothing but greed.
Oh, yeah. Well, that, and, they want their agenda. They don't care about the people's agenda. And unfortunately, when you have people that don't look at the candidate and don't look at the issues that those candidates stand for, they only vote for a letter.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you are an R or a D or an I. If you only vote a letter, nothing's ever going to change. And that's why I try so hard to get across to people. I am at heart a Democrat, but I don't think I've ever, since I was 18 years old, I don't think I have ever voted a straight ticket, because I look at the candidates, what they stand for, and what issues are important to me, how they feel about them. And the very people that were whining and screaming and ranting and raving over what they were doing to the marijuana bill turned right around in 2018 and reelected the same people that were trying to destroy the marijuana bill.
Wow.
So you're like, I don't see a problem with this.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. It's politics. But where else you want to go on the amendment?
Well, I guess I was going to see if we could kind of switch gears a little and go back and talk about your son's story, if you're comfortable sharing that.
Well, as I told you, he was 28 at the time and had been on opioids for quite some time. And so he had actually moved home because he stayed so doped up that his wife was afraid he was going to set fire to the house at night, because he'd get up in the middle of the night and start cooking and then just lay down on the floor and go to sleep.
Oh, wow.
His daily prescription was 90 milligrams of oxycodone, 50 milligrams of Valium, 5 of the strongest muscle relaxers they made, 5 Phenegrins, an Ambien at night, and an antidepressant. That was what he took every day.
And what was this for? I mean, I guess it was some sort of injury that he had?
He was in a couple of car accidents. He's had 3 neck surgeries and 2 lower back surgeries. He has 12 pins, 3 cadaver discs, and a cage in his neck. So he had moved back home and he came in and told us what the doctor said. And so we started, of course, illegally. He was using cannabis. So we started a regimen where we were weaning him off of all the medications and raising his intake of cannabis. Finally, one day he came in. He goes, Mom, I need you to come here. And I was all right. Okay. And I walked in the bathroom and he had all of his pill bottles open. He said, I need you to witness this. He poured them all in the toilet and flushed it.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, oh my God, you can't do that.
What are you doing?
You cannot do that. That you don't understand what this is going to do to you. He said, if I don't do it now, I never will.
Oh, wow.
So the next 5 days were the most horrible days that I can even remember. He lost in 5 days, he lost 33 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. From vomiting, diarrhea, it was horrible. But he made it past the 5 days. It took him about a month to become a human again. But he used the cannabis and he started doing some exercise and building the muscles around his neck and his lower back. He actually went from not even graduating from high school because his worst injury was his senior in high school. And from about November on, I think he missed 150 days of school.
Wow.
He never even graduated. Well, he went from that into a complete drug addict that would literally fall asleep in his plate to went back to night school and got his high school diploma, started college. He will graduate at the end of this month with a bachelor's degree in psychology and social work. He will start his master's program in January and is going to work towards his doctorate a double doctorate in psychology and social work.
Wow.
Yeah. Doesn't use cannabis anymore.
Are you kidding me?
No, he uses nothing.
Are you kidding me? After 14 years on prescription medication, he uses nothing now.
Nope. He stayed on cannabis for about 5 or 6 years, working to build the muscles up around the damaged area to where it could support it and lessen the pain. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't hurt because he does use CBD. He does use the CBD and that helps. But because of the legalities of it, and he's a big gun advocate, he can't have a medical card and buy guns. And he loves that. That's his hobby, is rebuilding and selling and buying guns. So he doesn't even use cannabis, which is amazing to go from where he was to where he is now. So it's amazing. And the really funny thing is we had fought so hard for him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it started. And of course, then once we started getting out and meeting people and getting signatures, we would hear people's stories every day. We've heard thousands and thousands of stories in there. There would be days that we were just like, we're so tired. We just can't go today. We just can't. And someone would write me or call me and say, thank you so much for what you're doing. And then they would tell me their story. And most of the time as they were crying, telling the story. And I would phone and say, we can't stay home today. We have to go another day. But the really funny thing is I graduated in 73. That was like the sexual revolution, the drug revolution, when everything changed. But it was really funny. I probably had not smoked marijuana a half a dozen times my entire life prior to 2011. And one day I was in bed with the worst migraine I'd ever had in my life. And I actually had to call Gary, my husband. He was in the living room and my head hurt so bad I couldn't even yell for him to come back there. And I said, I need you to come back here. And I said, I need you to go in there and get Brian's marijuana. He said, are you sure? And I said, just go get it. Within 5 minutes, my migraine was gone.
Wow.
I was tired and, that foggy feeling, but the headache was gone. So I started using it daily, doing edibles daily hang on a second, Gary's writing me a note. You remember? Oh, that's right. And I will tell her that in just a second. I started doing the edibles every day.
Hi, Gary.
Well, to prevent my migraines, well, I got a little added bonus. I had been asthmatic since I had been 8 years old. I started noticing the first allergy season. It was always worse during allergy season. I noticed allergy season that I had not used my nebulizer.
Oh, wow.
By the second allergy season, I realized I had not even used my inhaler in almost a year and was actually sleeping lying down, which I had slept sitting up 90% of my life. When the Affordable Care Act finally got passed and I was able to get insurance because of all my pre-existing illnesses, I went to the pulmonologist and he said, "How have you survived all these years without medication?" And I laughed and I said, "Well, you've been using cannabis." And he said, "I'm not laughing because there was actually a study done in 1919 on asthma patients and cannabis, and it proved to be one of the best treatments for asthma."
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, and so I am now asthma free. He said, "I can't say you're cured, but you have it under such strict control." They did the whole battery of asthma tests, could not induce an asthma attack. And the best part is when they did my lung function test, it had actually reversed all of my lung damage.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not.
Wow.
So he said, "Keep doing what you're doing." Well, a friend of mine had severe COPD. As a matter of fact, he had told her, "I don't know that you will make it next year for your yearly test." Of course, she was going, every quarter and everything. But when she went back, so I told her about it, she started using it. And for the first time in years, after about 2 weeks, she was able to get up and get around without her oxygen. To the point she even got to go motorcycle riding with her husband, which she hadn't gotten to do in years. And the year rolled around. She went to the pulmonologist for her yearly test. And he said, "I have to tell you, it's like I said last year, I really didn't expect you to still be here." She had the best lung function test that she had had in over 5 years.
Wow.
Unfortunately, they ended up having to move to Texas.
Oh, no.
And was dead within 6 months.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah, it was really hard. But anyway, so I've gotten extra benefits. Not only do I not any longer deal with asthma, I haven't been sick, knock on wood, in probably the last 5 years. And they told me 15 years ago when I went to my rheumatologist and my orthopedic that within 10 years I would be in a wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
That was 15 years ago, and I still run my farm on a daily basis.
Uh-huh. Which is very physically demanding work.
Absolutely. I'm slinging 50-pound bags of feed and hay and everything else around. I'm milking every day. I'm,
Getting butted around by the goats.
Yeah, and, the horses and everything else. So, once again, the only thing I use for that is cannabis. So has it changed my life drastically? Oh, my gosh, yes. And Gary wanted me to share a story with you that I had actually forgotten about. Back in 2012, when we were working on trying to get, we were on the ballot and trying to get it passed, we actually had gone to one of Gary's doctors, and our car was parked in the parking lot, and we had our cannabis sign on the side of our door. And when we came back out to the car, there was actually a note on the door, on the window. And just paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact words, but it was, "I am a breast cancer survivor. And the only thing that has saved me was cannabis. I've always was so afraid of being arrested because of it. And your efforts give me hope.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that when you walk out and see that someone thinks that you saved their life by fighting for something, that just does unbelievable things to your heart.
Yeah. I mean, to get the confirmation that I'm not just spinning my wheels, that what I'm doing matters. That's incredible.
Right. That you seriously are improving someone's quality of life, or actually giving them an extension on their life. So that's huge. And you get those, volunteers get those all day long. And it does give you the energy and the drive to keep moving forward.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, it's so frustrating because politicians think they know better than people and doctors. And it's like, you're not saving anybody. You're dooming people to death. I mean, not to be hyperbolic, but there are people like your friend who passed 6 months after she went to a state where she couldn't have access to the plant.
Even illegal access, because here she knew people that could get it for it because it was still illegal. Here she could get people that would get it for illegally and good quality. Because of the lung problems, we always made sure it was good quality and we knew where it came from and everything. But to extend your life for an additional couple of years and actually have a quality of life, because she kind of had gotten to the point that she really didn't have a quality of life. She could hardly walk across the room and was on oxygen 24 hours a day. And to be able to get out and, for her and her husband to get out and ride the motorcycle and go to dinner with friends and get to do things was huge for her. And then, like you said, then to move to a state where she had no access to it, even illegally, was heartbreaking. So it makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know when Texas is going to, well, as long as we have Dan Patrick as our lieutenant governor, we're not going to get any sort of legal access to cannabis because he controls everything that goes to the floor in the Senate.
Oh.
So until he's voted out of there, nothing is going to change. And, and I think even if they legalize it on a federal level, which they're kind of talking about doing, I don't think anything's going to change here in Texas because I think the laws are still written so that it would still be illegal because CBD oil was still technically illegal until they passed the hemp bill earlier this year.
I know, isn't that stupid?
It's absurd.
There's a psychoactive effect of CBD.
Yeah. And they were still actually actively prosecuting people in Tarrant County, which is up in the DFW area, over CBD oil.
That's insane.
It's nuts. Absolutely nuts.
I give my dogs and my goats CBD.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you had a Facebook page and a website. So give me those addresses real quick, because there might be people in Arkansas listening to this that live under a rock.
Okay. They will not let us change our drug policy education group name for Facebook because I guess it has cannabis in it. But our Facebook is Drug Policy Education Group, and our website is Arkansans for cannabisreform.com.
All right. I will put links to both of those in the show notes page so that anybody that wants to go check those out can do so on, they can get to it by link by going to the show notes page for today's episode.
So how close are you to the colony?
That's up in the DFW area, isn't it? Yeah. The colony. I'm about 3 hours from Dallas-Fort Worth.
One of my cousins lives there, and she's really wanting to get involved, and she joined Texas Normal. But I sent her Austin's information and told her to contact him and that he could guide her to someone closer to her to get involved.
Yeah. There's another lady who was recently on this podcast. She's up in the DFW area, Amanda Hughes Munson. She's active in the community up there. She's got a website called, a Facebook page called Higher Education Texas. And then I think Nico Murillo with Texans for Safe Access is up in the DFW area. So there's a pretty active community up in the DFW area.
Education.
Yeah, Higher Education Texas is what Amanda's Facebook page is.
Okay, and the other one is?
Nico Murillo with Texans for Safe Access.
Texans for Safe. I'll send these to her.
And then I think if she reaches out to the folks with Tarrant County Libertarian Party, they are active in, I think they're pretty active in the cannabis area. There's several people that have been, that are active up there. So I think your cousin will be able to plug in with a lot of good people up in the DFW area.
Well, I know that it's on the national platform and nearly every state platform for the Libertarian Party, and it's now it's on the national platform for the DNC, and the Arkansas Democrats also have it on their platform. So,
yeah, I think the Texas Republicans put a plank on their platform for it, but Dan Patrick didn't get that memo.
Well, and our Republicans are, not so much.
Yeah.
Not so much. Although, it's really funny, the politicians not so much, but in 2016 when this passed, the Republicans won overwhelmingly in every single race. I mean, overwhelmingly, not every single one, but very much the majority. Yet Arkansas still passed it. So, yes.
Well, that's one of the nice things that I like about cannabis is that it's an issue that brings people together as opposed to dividing them along party lines. Because I'm a libertarian myself, maybe like a small L libertarian. So everybody that I've worked with, it's an issue that brings us all together. We can find a place of unison to move forward, whether we're a Democrat, a Republican, a libertarian, an anarchist, whatever our political, religion is, we can come together and we can work towards cannabis legalization together.
And that's what I kept trying to tell them. I said, you're trying to make this a Democrat and Republican issue. They did every single time. And I said, this is a nonpartisan issue.
Yep. And it's a winning issue. If politicians would just get a little testicular fortitude, they would realize that this is a winning issue. The overwhelming majority of people in this country want cannabis legalized. And it's not because they're all stoners.
No, they just are tired of seeing people's lives ruined. And one of the statements that Boozman made that he sent me in French Hill too is, well, under 4 ounces is still a misdemeanor. It's only first offense is only a $2,500 fine and up to a year in jail. I'm sorry, there shouldn't be any fine. There shouldn't be any jail time for a plant. You're sitting there with a drink in your hand telling me how bad marijuana is. I'm sorry. How many times have I been to a political function and they'll say, oh, well, what do you want to drink? Oh, just some water. No, what do you want to drink? Well, I don't drink. Well, why? Are you an alcoholic? No, I just don't drink. I choose not to drink.
It's crazy. We had a Texas marijuana policy conference over Labor Day weekend down in Austin. And the lady who kind of organized it, she said, this is, I think, their second year to have it. But the bar tab was so much lower than what a traditional, I guess, political organization meeting would be, because this is a cannabis group. And I thought that was pretty funny.
And they talk about, and my sister lives in Texas, and she's one of them. She was for medical. Finally, it took her about 4 years to get on board, but she finally got on medical. A friend of hers got cancer, and it really helped her. So, okay, I'll be for it. The fact that my sister's been working on it for the last 4 years, didn't make any difference.
And the fact that her nephew, I mean, my gosh, look at this kid. He was on prescription drugs for 14 years.
Haven't spoken in years. So.
Oh, wow.
So wow. She probably really wouldn't care if he died.
That's a shame.
Upset me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, she says the same thing. She said, well, they'll be out driving around. I was like, Rhonda, why do you think they'll be driving around? And I said, and this comes from someone that has 2 or 3 margaritas in the evening when she gets home. Well, that's different. I don't go anywhere. So I said, so what you're telling me is you are a responsible drunk.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone's smoking marijuana, they're going to be out driving around killing people? I don't think so, Rhonda. Statistically, there are far, far less car accidents because of someone high on marijuana rather than someone drinking. And usually when those people are in a car accident, they're either A, have also been drinking, B, have other drugs in their system. But, she just won't look at it that way. And I'm like, it's fine for you to be able to legally go home and have a drink. Why shouldn't it be legally available for me to go home and smoke a joint? Although the really funny thing is, everybody laughs, Gary and I don't smoke.
Yeah.
We do edibles at night, but we don't smoke. And it's really ironic because I'll say, if I want to go home and smoke a joint, I could. Well, I don't.
Right.
I want to be able to if I want to.
Yeah. Well, it's the people that are against are against ending prohibition. They think it's either one or the other. It's like, oh, well, suddenly everybody is going to go out and get completely stoned out of their gourd just because it's legal. And I feel the same way. I don't consume. I don't really have an interest in consuming, but for me, this is about liberty. This is about bodily autonomy.
Exactly. And like I said, Gary and I, you will never see me high. I am a control freak of all control freaks. You will never see me drunk. In my almost 65 years, I can count on one hand the times I've been intoxicated. I can also count on one hand the times that I've been stoned. Do I use cannabis every day? Yes. I use it at night. And if I'm in a lot of pain, I do have a dry product vape. It's a flower mate that I can just take the dry product and use it so it's not harsh. And I don't get really high. It gives you a body high, but not a brain high. And I will occasionally, if I get a migraine or if I'm really, really hurting, we'll do that. But for the most part, we split a cookie when we go to bed. You won't see me high, even if it passes. You won't see me sitting around smoking a joint. But it's like you said, it's the principle of the thing.
Yes, very much so.
The fact that if someone chooses to do that instead of drinking or popping pills or whatever, they should have that right. And I fully believe that. I fully believe that it is the people's right. No one should be able to tell an adult whether they are smart enough to use cannabis or not. They're an adult. They should be able to make that decision. So, so we fight for it, even though it wasn't exactly what we thought we would do.
Right. Yeah. Who would have known, 11 years ago that this would be something that you'd be doing, right?
Believe me, it's, when Brian first started having to have his surgeries at 16, I had read where cannabis really helped pain. So I let him use it. A friend of his brought it to him and I let him use it. Now, I walked into his bedroom one day and his buddy was sitting there smoking a joint with him and I hit the roof. Just because I'm allowing him to use it in place of other medications does not mean that I condone 16-year-olds sitting in the bedroom getting high. Put that out and get your ass out of my house and do not bring it back in here again.
Yeah.
That was the way I looked at it. I supported it for medical, but a 16-year-old, I didn't think they didn't have any business drinking. They didn't have any business popping pills. They didn't have any business smoking joints. That's just the way I looked at it. They were kids. But, there comes a time that you have to stand up and fight for something that's bigger than you.
Yep.
And getting cannabis passed in the state was definitely bigger than Gary and I, and even as it turned out, bigger than my son. And so we fight because it's the right thing to do. We don't want a dispensary. We don't want a cultivation center. We don't want to work in a cultivation center or dispensary. I don't want to grow my own. I just want people to have access and the ability to use, grow, or purchase if they so choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And I appreciate the work that y'all are doing up there. I know the folks in Arkansas do as well. So good luck in 2020. It sounds like you have a pretty good movement behind you, and hoping that by 2020 we'll have some adult use in the state of Arkansas. That'd be awesome.
You can just drive right over the state line and consume if you so choose.
That's right. That's right.
Since you don't.
Yep. No, I'll definitely. That'll be nice to have for patients in Texas to be able to go over there and do that in the state of Arkansas. I mean, it's at least, drivable. So that's certainly some good news for patients in Texas and the surrounding states in Arkansas. Absolutely.
Well, and also another good thing is the recreational also has to be tested just like the medical. So just because you're buying from the recreational side doesn't mean you're getting substandard product.
Right. So that's good. That's something that the patients will be able to.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
Well, that sounds great, Melissa. Thank you so much for talking to me today and sharing your son's story and sharing the story of how medical cannabis came to Arkansas and how now adult use cannabis is coming to Arkansas.
Thank you so much for this. You have a great day.
All right, you too. Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Show notes for today's episode can be found out at cannabishealsme.com/86. We will be back here on Thursday with another educational episode. And until then, you guys have a great week. Thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to tell 3 people about the podcast. Hit the subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode of the Cannabis Heals Me podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or whatever podcast app you're using. Do you have a suggestion for a guest on Cannabis Heals Me? Send an email to podcast@cannabishealsme.com. We'd love to hear from you. Please do not take any information from Cannabis Heals Me or its guests as medical advice. Contact your licensed physician before taking cannabis or using it for medical treatments.